smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Great.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I am Davis Maddock, joined by George Kurtz today. No Craig Mish. Craig will be back next weekend here on the program. Sadly, I will not be with you next weekend here on the program, so a lot more George Kurtz in the future. An incredibly busy Saturday in the world of fantasy sports. Basketball, baseball, of course, progress on. Basketball season ending, baseball season beginning. We also are here, George, on Masters Saturday. We have moving day over at the Masters. The tournament has been really something to behold. The first 2 days, of course, no one is surprised to see Scotty Scheffler up near the top. They are about to tee off right now. How is the beginning of your Masters weekend going, George?
Well, I guess that remains to be seen, right? Last night certainly was an intriguing night with the Padres going back to beat the Dodgers there. My Yankees got rained out, doubleheader starting in about 3 hours here. And of course, Davis, you forget to mention we have a full slate of hockey today, too. I know hockey just gets no love here, but hockey also 13 games today as the NHL winds down its regular season, which ends on Thursday.
I actually was at the Carolina Hurricanes at St. Louis Blues last night, saw the Hurricanes and the Blues' hopes of finishing the second wild card with a 5-2 victory. Let's get to the headlines here on Saturday morning. Carlos Correa, yes, the Carlos Correa who signed with the team, that didn't sign with the team, that ended up with the Twins because of his medical weirdness, left the Twins game with an oblique injury. The Twins were a sleeper team for a lot of people heading into the season, playing in that very weak American League Central. Apparently, the market not necessarily noticing that the Kansas City Royals also reloaded Christian Yelich, one of the most interesting guys in fantasy baseball. Of course, has that incredible resurgent 2019 season where he wins National League MVP. He had been a longtime member of the Miami Marlins. Then he's been bad as a member of the Brewers. He's been good as a member of the Brewers, and he's also been average as a member of the Milwaukee Brewers, but they have a fairly decent-sized hole in their lineup without him. Back discomfort, I think it's been famously said many times, no one used to have a bad back. No one had a bad back and then had that solved, so we'll see what ends up happening there. Very big here for the Houston Astros. They just got shelled by the Kansas City Royals. Hunter Brown gave up 11 earned runs in 1 inning. They are needing Justin Verlander to return. He is set for his final rehab start tonight here on Saturday. And a headline that I am eyeing with great curiosity, former number 1 overall pick, Paul Skeens for the Pittsburgh Pirates, struck out 8 in AAA last night. He keeps his scoreless streak alive. George, it is up to you. Where do you want to begin with this baseball menu?
I guess we'll start with Justin Verlander, right? The future Hall of Famer could return at some point this week, if not probably the week after here. I might be curious what people are expecting from Verlander, right? At times last year when he returned from that injury with the Mets wasn't good. It took him a little while here, and I would expect that to happen again this year. So I think if you're hoping he returns, in his first start, he's going to be magic here and turn your fantasy team around, it'll be a DFS automatic. I would proceed with caution here. A lot of caution. Plus, the Astros aren't playing well. Well, they're in last place in the American League West there, so they're struggling as well here. So, like I said, Justin Verlander returning. Nice. We look forward to it. But, like I said, I would proceed with caution. And another top pitcher, by the way, there were some thoughts could return to show as soon as next weekend. Walker Buehler had to leave his start last night. Got hit with a comebacker. So he should be okay. It's precautionary exit more than anything else. We'll see if anything comes out of it today. But I guess the good news is we are starting to get back, or we will get back, some of those pitchers that were put on the IL during spring training and didn't suffer an elbow injury and aren't out for the year. I guess over the next couple of weeks, we'll get a smattering of them back. Verlander tops that list. Walker Buehler maybe the week after next. Michael Lorenzen from the Texas Rangers also expected to return this week.
Very interesting there. I mean, it's pretty interesting for the Astros. You're right. They are 4-11 to start the year. Their only pitcher who has pitched well is, I guess Christian Javier has been strong as well. Ronel Blanco, obviously, with the almost double no-hitter. He had one no-hitter, and then on Sunday Night Baseball last week had another one hitter going. I mean, I think that probably no one was happier than the front office and the management of the Houston Astros to see Blanco give up that hit. I don't think that they wanted to send a guy with 2 consecutive no-hitters back down to AAA. Framber Valdez landed on the 15-day IL. That's not particularly great. We've got Hunter Brown rocking the old 25 ERA plus after 2 starts. Not particularly great there. And I mean, there are multiple teams actually that are very high up in the World Series odds who have no real answer at starting pitching. The Braves, one of them. I mean, what are they going to do if they don't get Spencer Strider back and Chris Sale ends up having to miss 5, 6, 7, 8 starts? I don't know what the organizational answer is there. Let's move now to Skeens. What are your expectations for when he is going to be called up? Because I think, progressively, if the Pirates continue to be playing winning baseball right now, they are 10-4. Now, obviously, they did this last year as well in April. But let's say we get to the end of May and they are first place in the division. The team's playing pretty well. O'Neal Cruz is, not striking out 97% of the time. I mean, I think it becomes progressively harder for them to not call Paul Skeens up and help win games at the major league level.
Well, there are a couple of things that go into play here, right? I know everyone's comparing Skeens because Jackson Holliday got called up for Baltimore this week. Those are 2 different situations. We knew Holliday was ready actually in spring training. So Skeens, by the way. They're both ready to play in the major leagues. But Baltimore is competing for the World Series title. They might be the best team in the American League. All right, so it made sense. You want the Holliday up here as soon as possible, to help you win games. Pittsburgh, I guess in a perfect world, and it's a weak division, right? The National League Central is it's bad. All right, it's certainly not good. It probably won't take you 90 wins to win that division there. So he could certainly help you win that division, but you're not going anywhere. You're not going to beat the Dodgers, like you're not going to beat the Braves. I don't care what's going on with Strider there. So they're going to be the old financial advantage there. I don't think you're going to see Skeens up Davis until they're pretty sure the Super 2 is passed. So they get to keep him the extra year down the line here. I don't agree with it. I think it's kind of silly here. You worry about that when the time comes here. But Pittsburgh is a low revenue team. They're going to wait here. I don't think they're going to worry all that much about, oh, my God, we need him to win an extra couple of games here and there. Pitcher is a little different from a position player as well. They'll give us some BS. He needs to work on his curveball. He needs to work on holding runners on, whatever they're going to make up here. He's ready to pitch now. But financially, I don't think we're going to see him until the end of May.
I mean, I think you're probably right. The thing that bums me out about pitchers being left in the minor leagues is, Paul Skeens only has so many 98-mile-an-hour fastballs in that arm before he needs Tommy John. That's just, feels like that's the way of the world these days. And I would rather those 98-mile-an-hour fastballs be in Major League Baseball, not against AAA guys that are totally overmatched against him. Guys, we have got a huge show here. Of course, we're going to do waiver wire for fantasy baseball. We're going to do Major League Baseball DFS. Grant Albright's going to join the program. Don't go anywhere. Hang out with George and I for the next 2 hours. We'll be back in a bit.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Jrue Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford, Father Time can catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I mean, they're still the best. They're still the champs. Everyone wants to crown the Celtics the champions, but that's not the way it works. They got to beat them. And, they got to get through the East, which isn't going to be fun to begin with. Everyone thinks it's so automatic.
If it's just Boris is kind of losing his power, if whatever his tactics have been, yeah, move on.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They are the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Great.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back into Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I am Davis Maddock, joined by George Kurtz today. No Gray Albright on the program. We are going to begin with the waiver wire pitchers, which is, of course, early in the season. I mean, getting a win on the waiver wire at starting pitcher or at closer, honestly, is so massive. We are going to begin, George, with Ryan Pepiot for the Tampa Bay Rays. He is one of these guys who is also, if you play in some formats that have a difference between relief pitcher and starting pitcher, he is eligible at both because he has done both in his Major League Baseball career. He is starting for the Tampa Bay Rays right now. He is, I think, probably going to be available in a bunch of 12-team leagues, and then he will definitely be one of those guys who is on the borderline in competitive 15-team leagues. Is Ryan Pepiot the answer to this year's guy who comes out of absolutely nowhere and ends up crushing for the Tampa Bay Rays? What do you make of Ryan Pepiot?
Pepiot was acquired in the Tyler Glasnow trade by the Rays. Now we know he pitched in a good pitcher's ballpark in Tampa Bay, right? So that's a plus there. They're not the team they used to be, but still a decent squad there. Do I think he's the answer to your problems here? I mean, I have him in my home league. I think I drafted him. So I'm interested, right? Curious. I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he's an ace in the making. I think he's a number 2 in the making here. Do I think he can be a solid major league starter? I do. Do I think the Rays can work some magic to get him better than that? Sure. All right. Do I think it might take until maybe next year, the year after? Yes. Listen, the Dodgers are a great organization for pitching. All right, I'm sure they didn't want to give away Pepiot, but I'm also sure they know he's not a future. Oh my God, it's going to be a guy we regret giving up here. Hell, I'm not so sure they can regret giving anybody up right now at the start that Glasnow's gotten off to there. So I think Pepiot can be a useful starter. 12-team league, I think he's 12-team and above. He should absolutely be rostered. I think a 10-team league is the one way, or maybe there could be some better options here, but there is upside here. I'm a fan of Ryan Pepiot.
Yeah, I think that is correct. I mean, I would not go absolutely nuts on him. Now, a guy I am higher on, a guy I think that if he manages to stay healthy for the entirety of the season, could actually be closer to a league-winning guy, and that is going to be Jordan Hicks, who was a relief pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals for the entirety of his career. Now the Giants signed him to a multi-year deal to be a starting pitcher, And the experiment has gone quite well through 3 starts. He really looks like one of the better pitchers in the National League right now. He's only given up 12 hits. He's only given up 2 earned runs. He is, throwing this crazy fastball without showing signs of wearing down. But George, as you well know, I mean, we just probably are not going to get 30 starts out of Jordan Hicks in 2024.
You're not getting anywhere near 30 starts out of Jordan Hicks. All right, this is going to be a definition of a sell-high player. Listen, I tried to get him, once again, that home league of mine, I lost the waiver priority, so I didn't get him, but I wanted him for now. I think you're going to want him in April, you're going to want him in May, and then you're going to want to move him. All right, it's really that simple. He hit through 65.2 innings last year. All right, now I don't know what the Sanford organization believes in as far as innings jump, but generally the average is 40 innings. That gives you 105. Nowhere near 30 starts. And he's certainly not going to throw 150 innings. He's not going to make a 100-inning jump here. They'll protect him for that. They'll be afraid he's going to blow his arm out. You also wonder, as the weather gets warmer, does he wear down a little bit? He's not off to a start right now. So I think he's a great guy. He's available on your wire right now? Absolutely. And you want him to keep pitching well, and then somewhere before Memorial Day, you want to move him. It's going to be that simple to me. He's going to be a sell high. In my mind, he screams sell high, sell high, sell high, sell high, because he's not making 32 starts. I said I would put the over-under probably around 19 and a half about how many starts he makes. I said I like him now, but I'm going to want to move him in the future.
Yeah, I think you are. I think you're 100% correct. I mean, and just even getting that guy for, let's call it 9 starts, I think is going to be a win, because I expect him to perform pretty well. So whatever fab money there is to spend, I think that is a fairly good spot. All right, now moving on to the Pittsburgh Pirates. We touched on Paul Skeens in the open. Jared Jones, one of their young starting pitchers, has been quite good to start the year. 25 strikeouts in 18 innings pitched for Jones. I don't know a ton about his prospect profile. Is this sustainable? Is this what was expected of him? Is this a guy we are waiting to regress to average very quickly? Where are we at on Jared Jones of the Pittsburgh Pirates?
3rd round pick by the Pirates, so not quite the Skeens level, but a good prospect is really what Jones is coming on here. A little surprising that he made the team and Skeens didn't, but once again, Skeens is expected to be, number 1 ace, World Series Game 1 starter, that kind of pitcher here. So that's maybe why Skeens was sent down and Jones wasn't. But I got to tell you, I was no surprise they took Jones up with them. Would have thought they would have done the same thing with him and kept him down there. Once again, protect the extra year. A team that's a little bit financially disadvantaged there. Do I think he can keep it up? Yeah, I do. Now, he pitched well last night. Again, lost. Had 8 strikeouts, but lost. Not losing is not always his fault here, but pitched well here. So, yes, another guy I like. It seems like you're looking at my home team roster, by the way, because another guy I have on my home team. So picked him up after the season, I believe. There, got a waiver wire claim. I like taking young guys, see what happens here. Now, this is somebody that, once again, probably could make 25 starts, but we know how the game's going to be played here. They're going to protect him. There's going to be an innings limit. They always are on young guys. What that innings limit is going to be? He threw 82 innings last year. 126. That's good. Theoretically, he could throw 160, which will get you pretty much through almost the entire season, especially if they skip a start here and there. If they give him that long layoff around the All-Star break, right? You can give him 2 weeks off there, and you could you can push him through the rest of the season here. It likely depends, Davis, on what you said earlier. They're playing well right now. Can they stay in some kind of contention? If they can, I think we might get Jared Jones into August, into September. If they fall out of it, they're going to protect him. They're going to shut him down eventually here. So that's my only fear. Once again, in a redraft league, you're probably going to want to move him. Not by May. Maybe we'll go a different holiday here. Maybe it's by July 4th instead of Memorial Day here this year. You're going to want to move him if you're worried about, once again, the innings limit and that they might shut him down, which I believe they will do.
All right, let's move on now to a guy who has fascinated me for as long as he has been in the major leagues, and that is Yusei Kikuchi, who just has had a great start against the New York Yankees. He's off to an awesome start this year, 2.3 ERA. Now, the results in his career have been a bit strange. I mean, he's got multiple 32-start seasons, so a guy who has not struggled with health nearly as much as some guys have in Major League Baseball. He has got a strong start right now, walking a few more guys than you would like. But, George, I just love guys who throw 5 pitches for strikes, which Kikuchi can. Has he found something, or is this just a hot start to the year?
I mean, listen, as a baseball player, sure, I love the fact that he can throw 5 pitches, right? Keeps you off balance a little bit, but he needs to be perfect. He's not going to blow you away here. He pitches in a bandbox. You know, Toronto was a bandbox before they brought the fences in. I have no idea why they did that. None. Like Vladimir Guerrero needs help hitting home runs. So that worries me. American League East can hit as well. I know you don't have as many starts against your division as you used to, but still, it's a bunch of starts. You know, against the Orioles, against the Yankees, Red Sox can hit as well here. So I'm not a huge fantasy fan. I think he's a guy you got now. You're riding now. He's pitching well, sure. In 2 weeks, you might want to move on. You know, that sort of thing here. I don't think he's going to be a great trade bait for you, and I certainly don't see him keeping this up, pitching so well. You know, through into the summer. Don't see that happening. So he's pitching great now. That's great. You ride it. You have him, but I'm not a fan.
You know, I think that is probably fair in the end. I'm not going to go nuts for him. If I was setting my waiver priorities for this weekend, I definitely would do Jordan Hicks first. I would do Ryan Pepio second. Well, actually, no, I would do Jared Jones first. I think he's got the best ability to be a difference maker and be a difference maker for, let's call it 4 months. You know, I like Jordan Hicks' game. I think that the beginning of this experiment has been better than the Giants anticipated. But if you made me bet who's going to pitch one game in August, I'm taking Jared Jones over Jordan Hicks, which feels kind of crazy to say given their age differences. We are going to go ahead and run into break here real quick on the program. When we return, we are going to turn the coin and do waiver wire hitters, looking at some of the guys with hot starts. Don't go anywhere. Stay on the grid. George and I will be right back.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Drew Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time to catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I mean, they're still the best. They're still the champs. Everyone wants to crown the Celtics the champions, but that's not the way it works. They got to beat them. And, you know, they got to get through the East, which isn't going to be fun to begin with. Everyone thinks it's so automatic.
If it's just Boris is kind of losing his power, if whatever his tactics have been, yeah, move on.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They are the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Great.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back into Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I am Davis Maddock, joined by George Kurtz. We just ran through some of the big names for the waiver wire starting pitchers this week. 12-team leagues, 15-team leagues, NFBC, home leagues. We cover it all here on the program for the waiver wire. And, George, we are going to begin the waiver wire hitters with a name that is so painfully familiar to those of us who have played fantasy baseball for a long time, and that is going to be first base, third base, DH, depending on your league's eligibility rules, for Justin Turner, who is nearing 40 years old. This is a guy who has been around. I probably had Justin Turner on 16 fantasy baseball teams in my life. Like I probably was like 15 years old drafting Justin Turner. He is off to a pretty decent start to the year. Definitely not a guy who was a core part of my draft strategy this year. Are we buying? I mean, is it really just as simple as he gets to play in that stadium and that division, and it's just kind of offense on easy mode in that ballpark?
I mean, that's part of it, sure. I mean, we do like the ballpark. I mentioned earlier they brought the fence. They brought it in before last season, and they didn't need to. It was already a hitter's haven, and now it's a joke. But whatever. We like the fact that you already said it plays multiple positions, so we like that in fantasy, right? We like flexibility. Always comes in handy. We're going to have injuries. It's not just pitchers that get hurt. Position players get hurt as well, so you can move them around. You mentioned it depends upon your league's rules there, but still, he has value there. He's hitting, 350, a home run, 5 RBIs. We'd like to see the power numbers get up a little bit. We know we're not getting any speed out of him. He bats fourth generally in that lineup. It's 4 righties in a row there. This is why the Jays wanted Ohtani so much, by the way, to split them up there. But Springer, Vlad, Bichette, and Turner before they get to a lefty or two. So not exactly great lineup construction there. But, yes, I like Turner. I do. I'm not dying for him. I'm not saying you got to go out and trade for him. But as far as starting him day in, day out of my lineup, yes. On that where he hits. He's a professional hitter. Is he going to put up a monster season, 35 home runs, 110 RBIs? No. But he'll give you solid numbers. You could do a lot worse.
He is. I think that is the best way to describe him, which is that he's a very solid professional hitter. He's not going to hit 40 home runs. Obviously, at age 39, he's not going to be stealing a ton of bases, but he has got a pretty valuable skill set. And he doesn't strike out a ton, right? So that's going to help your batting average stuff. Like, he definitely can be a guy who can add to your batting average and not just be like a one category contributor the way that some guys are. Now, the other side of this coin, we have a former Toronto Blue Jays third baseman in Matt Chapman, who's definitely on the back half of his career. One of the guys who unfortunately just really could not find a home this offseason due to the way that Scott Boras manipulated the market. He is off to, I think it would be unfair to call it a cold start, given that his home run projection as a member of the San Francisco Giants in the NL West definitely would have went down compared to being the third baseman for the Toronto Blue Jays in the American League East. He's got 2 home runs already. He's not hitting, he's hitting 193. And over the course of the season, you're not anticipating Matt Chapman to be a 300 hitter for sure. He also already has a stolen base. I actually, George, would probably be more likely to add Matt Chapman in a league than Turner, because you could get a 36 home run season out of Matt Chapman. I mean, it might come with a 194 batting average, but I think you probably accept that trade-off.
I'm probably the opposite, mainly because power is not a problem anymore, right? We all have power on our teams, unless you happen to just draft. If you're looking for power, yes, you're taking Chapman. I think he will hit more home runs than Turner. Maybe even by a considerable margin here. I'd rather have Turner because generally, for me personally, I need the average. All right, that's just my bugaboo here. I need speed most of all, but neither one's going to give me that. So I'm probably looking at that. Plus, I do like the position flexibility, which is why I would lean towards Turner. Chapman, I did a lot of mock drafts, right? Way too many, and he was always available late, and he's probably available in a lot of leagues still now. So he's there. He's just there. Corner infielder, DH, that's where you want to slot him in if you're looking for him. I think the power will be there. We get worried about the Giants, right? The stadium. It's bad for lefties. It's solid for righties. I mean, it's a center field, okay, but if you pull the ball, you can put it to the seats there. So I don't downgrade him that much here. But bottom line is this: he's not someone I'm looking out to grab. I didn't want any of them: Chapman, Montgomery, Snell, JD Martinez. I'm forgetting somebody. There was 5 of them. I didn't want any of the Boris clients here, right, man? I think it was Montgomery just fired Boris after what happened here. I don't like players who miss any part of spring training for this. I don't think they're ready to play until May, maybe a little longer than that, and I'm not waiting that long. I can find somebody else.
Yeah, I think that is fairly reasonable. All right, now this guy that we're about to talk about is going to be a controversial one, and a guy that I actually think is the exact type of bet you should be making in fantasy baseball. I am, of course, talking about Giancarlo, don't call me Mike Stanton. 4 home runs already to begin the year. I think that the downfall of Stanton is maybe a little bit overstated. I mean, he was not good relative to his own standards last year, and he hit 24 home runs. The year before, he was not particularly good and hit 31 home runs. Last year, the 191 batting average, 211 the year before. His strikeouts are... The weird thing is his strikeouts are up relative to his career average, but not in an insane amount. I mean, there have been years where Stanton struck out 30% of the time and hit 37 home runs and had a passable batting average. I mean, I think that if Stanton is out there in your leagues right now, I mean, George, I think you got to go get him, because there is certainly a chance that, actually, I'd say a good chance that he could turn in a 230 batting average, 42 home runs. Like, there could be you never get league winners off the waiver wire in terms of hitting. Now, you get league winner pitchers off the waiver wire in fantasy baseball. How often in your life, George, do you think you found 30 home runs off the waiver wire in fantasy baseball? Like, maybe almost never.
It's more prevalent now because, once again, the baseball has changed. All right, it's just changed. Everything's about launch angle now. All right, hit home runs. The analytics department tell you can't hit 3 singles in a row to drive in a run. No one does it anymore. So you got to hit home runs here. So it's easier to find here. The question is, can you find it not to the detriment of average? Right, that's always the issue here. Back in the day, you need to have about 278 average to win that, right? Maybe even a little higher. Now it's gone down to the 260s, even to the high 250s, because no one's worried about average anymore. It's a dead stat. All right, generally on base is more important than average, which I would agree with, by the way, and as far as the game of baseball is concerned. Walks are just as good as a single, all right? Except the fact you go to first and third, whatever. Stanton, now he got svelter. Not that he was, of course, he wasn't out of shape. He was probably too in shape, right? That was always, he was Atlas. Man was carved out of marble there. They were thinking that was bad for him. Or bad. That's really bad for any baseball player to be too cut up. You need to be flexible. So they're thinking that's going to help him this year, help him stay healthy. He's still a statue at the plate, right? You throw that sweeper, he's going to swing at it, he's going to miss it. That sort of thing. But he does look better. The problem with Stanton is going to be this. When's the injury happening, Davis? Today? Next week? Next month? We know it's coming. If he stays, if you were to tell me that Davis comes down, I am fantasy baseball god, I bequeath that Giancarlo Stanton will play 135 games. He will hit 40-plus home runs. There's little doubt about that. Little doubt. The question is going to be injury. When's it coming? How many times is it coming? Once? Twice? Is he coming for a week? 2 weeks? A month? We don't know. That's always the issue with Stanton. So that's the gamble. If you think he's going to stay healthy or even relatively healthy, yes, he'll hit you 35, 40 bombs. Easy. But the injury is going. So if you do grab him, fine. You grab him with the waiver wire, you have nothing to lose anyway. All right? Who cares if somebody gets hurt? You grab with the waiver wire on April 13th. You're not expecting the big thing. So, yeah, Stanton is certainly a pickup if you need power. The average is okay right now. You're hoping that in the end, he's not going to help you in average, but that he doesn't hurt you either.
That's fair. Well, some sad breaking news here on the program. Spencer Strider is going to be out for the entire season for the Atlanta Braves. This is obviously the direction that we thought it was going to go when it was announced that he had some elbow discomfort and that he was going to have an MRI. We talked about it on this program last week. We talked about it on, Pharrell Coast to Coast this week when I had been on with Scotty and with Carver. I mean, it just doesn't really happen that often where a pitcher of that caliber is going to have elbow discomfort and they're not going to end up having to have season-ending surgery. We're waiting to see what happens with Garrett Cole for your New York Yankees in terms of his elbow discomfort. But this does, I think, George, change the calculus of, one, definitely changes the calculus of fantasy baseball. We're talking about the number one starting pitcher off the board. We are talking about a guy last season who was the number one most common player on league-winning rosters on the NFBC, like basically the best guy you could have had in terms of the combination of total volume of statistics, wins and strikeouts with the ERA and the WHIP. I mean, if you had Spencer Strider on your fantasy baseball team, I don't want to tell you to close the window and find a new hobby for this spring, but you might need to think about it, because it's about as big of a loss as you can find in fantasy baseball. And George, in terms of what the Braves can do, I don't see there being some great prospect down at Gwinnett AAA who can come in and fix this entire situation. Obviously, we are going to talk more about Spencer Strider over the rest of the program. George, just real quick, you got anyone? You got any positive words for someone who drafted Spencer Strider in the first round of their leagues?
The NFL draft is 12 days away. 12 days away for the NFL draft for you. So there you go. You start worrying about your fantasy football draft here. Brutal. He's over a first-round pick, second-round pick at worst. Brutal. Not surprising. We knew this was coming. I'd be very curious to see what the Braves do to try and reinforce this pitching staff, which probably needed reinforcements anyway.
So that's the thing, is they did need reinforcements anyways. I think there are guys out there for them to get. I expect the Braves and Alex Anthopoulos to be very active in the trade market. More on Spencer Strider and fantasy baseball when we return.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is his starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Drew Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time to catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
They're still the best. They're still the champs. Everyone wants to crown the Celtics the champions, but that's not the way it works. They got to beat them. And, they got to get through the East, which isn't going to be fun to begin with. Everyone thinks it's so automatic.
If it's just Boris is kind of losing his power, if whatever his tactics have been, move on.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They are the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time. Break.
All right, guys, we are back from break here on Fantasy Sports Today. I am Davis Maddock, joined by George Kurtz, and we have some somber news this morning. We just covered it over at the end of the last break, but Spencer Strider is going to be out for the remainder of the 2024 Major League Baseball season. He underwent that UCL surgery yesterday. Bummer of a news for Spencer Strider. Bummer of a news for the Atlanta Braves. And honestly, George, I mean, let's think about the real impact here. Bummer for me. I did bet on Spencer Strider 200-1 to win the National League MVP. I thought I was so smart. I thought I was a genius. You know, Spencer Strider goes out, has this incredible season. Acuna and Ohtani kind of split votes at the top there. It all ends up feeding to Strider. Not going to end up being what is happening. Now, let's talk about the impact for fantasy baseball. Obviously, if you lost Spencer Strider, look, I'm very sad for you. I don't think that there is a ton that you can do. I mean, look, you can cut him. You can fight the hardest you can, but it is not going to be a particularly solid spot for you. The remainder of the Braves rotation, I don't see a ton here to be interested in either. Alan Winans pitched for them the other day. He was brutal. He was awful in that performance against the Mets, I believe. Reynaldo Lopez is in the rotation right now as well. Do we have anyone? Is there some amazing guy in AAA that I've never heard of? What are the Braves going to do from a fantasy baseball perspective that we can or cannot take advantage of?
Well, in the short term, they're going to use their youngsters, right? They got Vines. Winans is out already. They got Vines. They'll see what they can get out of him. They do have a couple of young prospects. Now, these are not, you said amazing prospects. These are solid prospects, good prospects, but we're not talking, oh, wow, nowhere near Skeens level. All right, there's no one there. So anybody's looking for that. That's not happening here. You do have, A.J. Smith-Scheuer. You know, he's a guy who could be called up. They also have Hurston Waldrop. Once again, good, solid prospects, guys who do have potential here. But this is the Braves. We're not talking about, an also-ran team. I fully expect Anthopoulos search the trade wire. You know, it's early. I don't think he's going to be able to find it April 13th, but he's going to keep searching the wire. What they're going to hope for is that over the next 2-3 months, before the trade, baseball's the forever season here, to stay in it, stay in playoff contention, and then make the big move somewhere in July, probably closer to the deadline for that top starting pitcher who's ever available at that time. I believe that's what they're looking for. That's what they'll have to do. That's the way baseball works. You're not replacing Spencer Strider. No one is. But to get really a top-notch guy or the best guy available, that's going to be closer to the trade deadline than it is, anywhere near Memorial Day. So they're screwed right now. And so I think they needed starting pitching help before this. Now Strider's gone for sure, which I guess gives you more. It's more definitive. I think you need more than one. I think you need one good one and one solid one.
I think you're definitely right. Looking at it from a fantasy baseball lens, I'm seeing a couple ways that this can benefit fantasy baseball managers. I mean, obviously not benefiting fantasy baseball managers who had Strider. But I'm looking at, okay, who has some starting pitchers who actually would make sense on the Marlins roster or on the Braves roster and might get them there. And two of them reside on the Miami Marlins roster, a team that doesn't want to spend, a team that is dead in the water. We're going to talk about them a little bit later here on the program. But Jesus Luzardo and Trevor Rogers are two guys. I mean, I don't know. They're coming close to their arbitration and free agency years. We'll see what ends up happening there. I mean, can you think of any other guys who would make sense on this roster who would be available? Looking at guys on, is there anyone from the Athletics who could churn up 150 innings? Is there anyone on the White Sox who could churn some innings for the Braves? Because that is another thing we learned, George, at the trade deadline last year. There were way fewer sellers. There were way more buyers than sellers at the trade deadline, which was, really impacted the trade market.
Yeah, because the more teams were in it. There wasn't too many great teams last year, so teams want to go take a chance to stay in it. Hey, maybe make the playoffs, wake up the fan base, that sort of thing. Now it depends on what you're looking for, right? I had my doubts that the Marlins would trade inside their own division, which I think is silly, by the way. If the Braves made you the best offer for Luzardo, that's who you trade with. Maybe if it's even, if the Braves make an offer for Luzardo and the Yankees make the same offer or close to it, okay, trade to the Yankees, get him out of the division, out of the league here. Fully understand that. But if the Braves make the best offer, that's where he goes, in my mind anyway. I mean, you can look at the Angels here, Sandoval, Detmers. We're not talking Tyler Anderson. We're not talking about world turners here. You mentioned Blackburn of the Oakland Athletics. Okay, you can look at that. But most of these teams, I mean, you need a team that's going to be out of it. And I'm looking here. Most teams they're going to think they're in it. Or they have a chance to pitch here. The Mariners have made noise. They need a hitter more than a pitcher. Maybe you can pry Logan Gilbert from him. Now that would be interesting because I think that's something that could work. The Mariners we heard all season, and it's true they need. Listen, the first 2 weeks were showing us they need another hitter. I think they need two hitters here. So maybe that's something you can work with there. I said, I don't think the Marlins, you're not working with the Mets. At the Nationals, it's the same damn problem. The problem is everyone's looking for pitching, right? It's not everyone. Keep looking through this. The Red Sox, they're going to fall out of it, but they're not going to go yet. They're not going to upset their fan base. Do you want a Rockies pitcher? Kyle Freeland? What can he do out of Colorado? So they're sort of screwed here. Bottom line is the Braves are screwed. They need a pitcher anyway. You mentioned you betting on him to win MVP. He's a National Cy Young favorite. And now he's gone. I mean, it's almost like, I guess Acuna would be worst case scenario if he got hurt. Stride is really close to that for the Braves.
Yeah, and I mean, look, they have plenty of guys on their 40-man roster down in Gwinnett. Some of them are possible, guys. I mean, remember Huascar Ynoa, he's coming back from injury. Lucas Williams, Tyler Thomas, like they have a lot of guys. I mean, a lot of their guys who are down there are not on the 40-man roster. Like they're not even considered close. So I guess actually probably the best thing that could happen for the Braves and for fantasy baseball managers. And it's not like stuff like this never happens. Remember Jacob deGrom? No one knew who Jacob deGrom was. Jacob deGrom was actually expected to be a bad pitcher. I actually remember in Jacob deGrom's first ever start for the New York Metropolitans, I stacked against him. I used 5 hitters against him, and he was awesome in his first ever. I just remember it being one of those things. Maybe they get very lucky. Maybe one of these guys comes up. Maybe Huascar Ynoa was a decent starting pitcher in Major League Baseball before he broke his hand. Maybe he comes back and performs all right. I just had a galaxy brain idea, but Shoto Imanaga for the Chicago Cubs. So he comes over. Everyone in Major League Baseball decided not to be in the Imanaga business. He signs a pretty small deal, honestly, with the Chicago Cubs, 2 years, $23 million, team option in 2026, 27, and 28. He is a free agent eligible in 2030. I mean, I wonder if you give the Cubs a call because he has been unreal to start this year. And I tend to be higher on some of these Japanese import starting pitchers than the market. It's worked out a couple times. It's really not worked out on a couple of these other occasions. That was one idea I had. I mean, I do really like your Logan Gilbert idea. You know who they wish they had, George? I bet they wish they would have gotten in that Dylan Cease business before he ended up as a member of the San Diego Padres. How good would Dylan Cease be as the second starting pitcher for the Braves right now?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I'm like, Dylan Cease would have been nice there. I don't see Imanaga happening there. The Cubs aren't giving it. They're in it. They like him. He brings a whole new market. He's money for them as well. As far as they're not trading him. Not yet, anyway. Not this season. I think they're sort of screwed. I think they'll talk to the Mariners. We heard all season the Mariners And listen, how true it is, we never know. But Gilbert's name was out there. It's not that they're looking to move him here, but they have a lot of good starting pitchers, Castillo, Kirby, whatever you think of Wu there. And there was someone who might be available, and they might be able to get a hold for him. The problem is, let's just say for giggles here, that the Mariners are willing on April 13th to trade Gilbert. They're going to want to hear from everybody. Everyone's going to want Gilbert, right? Every team needs more pitching. Maybe not the Dodgers. God bless them, right? But everybody else needs more pitching. So Braves got to outbid everybody, and they're going to have to hope that, yes, not only will the Mariners trade Gilbert, but that they would trade him now and not a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now. The trade deadline is July 31st. We know how it works. You wait forever because you want to make sure you get the best possible deal, and the Mariners may not believe they're going to get it in mid-April, and it's kind of hard to fault them for that if they are indeed willing to move Gilbert.
I would fault the Braves. I would fault the Braves for not making a move as soon as possible. If Alex Anthopoulos is not on the phone right now making calls, I actually would say that is because their roster is just too good, right? I mean, I think that is the issue, is they are just too good of a team to kind of sit on their hands. And, George, I think we think of the Atlanta Braves because they're so good in the regular season as a team that just has this perennial postseason success. They won the World Series in 2021. That was the first time they'd won a World Series since 1995. They lost in the divisional series, not even the championship series, in each of the last 2 years. And you know what? I solved it. I actually know exactly the move they're going to make. I bet they make this move within 10 days. I'm going to go Nostradamus-matic here. They are going to trade some cash and a player to be named later for Alex Wood. Alex Wood is going to be an Atlanta Braves within the next 10 days. Fantasy or reality on that? Do you think I feel very confident Alex Wood is going to be a Brave very soon.
Well, since you named an actual pitcher, I'll take fantasy. I'll take the field. I think they might add somebody, but I'll take it to anybody else. Boy, that would not move the needle, by the way. Alex Wood would not move the needle. Oh, he's just a guy, just a jag, and probably less than that here. So I would hope he has to aim for better. But I don't think they're desperate for somebody, by the way. They have a rotation here. They need good. That's what they need here. So I think you need to do better than Alex. Listen, you want to acquire him, fine. He gives you depth there. That's great. And you need that during a long season as well. But they got to do much more than that. If they're going after Wood, you better not give up anything of use for Mr. Wood.
Yeah, and look, I don't think they will. Now, the Braves farm system, the Braves farm system is not that bad. They obviously, I don't think they'd want to trade a high end guy unless they were getting. How lucky would they be actually if something like what happened last year with the Mets, where Verlander and Scherzer ended up being disemboweled from that organization? That does not happen all that often, where you're able to acquire a really good starting pitcher with postseason experience at the trade deadline. That is fairly rare. Most of the time you are getting Alex Woods at the trade deadline, going through Kyle Finnegan could be a guy, look, Patrick Corbin, Michael Wacha. Well, the interesting thing about Wacha is I thought he was a guy that Kansas City signed for this exact situation. Kansas City signs him, just like they signed Aroldis Chapman last year. He gets traded at the deadline. You get a prospect. You get a little bit of cash. Kansas City might be too good for Michael Wacha to be traded. They might win 87 games. They're not selling. They're buying. They're going to add to their bullpen. So just some brutal news here on the program. We did skip over this week's best and worst. Maybe we can run through some of those names a little bit later in the program. But look, sometimes you got to stop the show for Spencer Strider, out for the year with a UCL surgery. Absolutely brutal. Hopefully he got it done early enough to return. We'll be very interested to think about him for fantasy baseball next season when Craig and George and I are doing this show. Where do you take an injured Spencer Strider? We're going to go ahead and run at the break. Don't go anywhere. George and I will continue in just a moment.
people that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is his starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
A popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
There's going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Jason Tatum has games where he has stinkers. He shoots a 4 for 16. Jaylen Brown in the playoffs gets exposed because he can't go left. Porzingis gets old. Sometimes Drew Holiday's not consistent. Al Horford father time can catch up. That being said, I still think they're going to the NBA Finals and winning it. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hate the Celtics with all of my might.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I mean, they're still the best. They're still the champs. Everyone wants to crown the Celtics the champions, but that's not the way it works. They got to beat them. And, they got to get through the East, which isn't going to be fun to begin with. Everyone thinks it's so automatic.
If it's just Boris is kind of losing his power, if whatever his tactics have been, yeah, move on.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Memphis owns it. They beat them 5 straight times. And Memphis is awful. So what does that say about the Bucks? They are the most overrated team in the NBA, hands down.
Michigan and Boston College, there's going to be goals scored in this game. But, with that being stated, the total's up to 7.5 right now. I got to go under 7.5 here, Scott.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Great.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back into Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I am Davis Maddock, joined by George Kurtz on the program here today. We are going to go ahead and wrap up hour one. We did skip over this week's best and worst. We are going to get to it at the beginning of block 2. Don't you worry, but of course we had to break down that injury to Spencer Strider. Definitely the biggest news that is going to happen in fantasy sports today. We are going to do a little bit of Major League Baseball DFS in hour 2. We are, of course, going to do Fantasy Reality. Gray Albright is going to join the program, and we are going to do the SportsGrid 60. Now, we have no NFL draft on the menu in this program. George, they're making me wait another week before we break into the NFL draft. But I want to ask you, what are you hoping that your Dallas Cowboys end up doing in the first and second round? Do you want a lineman? Do you want a wide receiver? What are you hoping the Dallas Cowboys do?
Davis, I was having a nice morning. I was enjoying the show. And now you bring up the Cowboys. They're all in, Davis, don't you know? All in. They've lost, 2 offensive linemen, a running back, a wide receiver, 2 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers. Likely going to lose a cornerback when Stephon Gilmore doesn't resign. At this point, I think you have to trade down to acquire more draft picks. So that's what I'm hoping for. Maybe not trade down far. They're at 24. Maybe trade down, into the 30s somewhere and acquire an extra third-round pick because you need help all over the place. If my guess is they're going to take a lineman round 1. You have to protect Dak Prescott. You don't have a choice here. Somewhere around round 3, they're going to have to get a running back here. But pretty much it's BPA, best player available, because they need help everywhere. Right? They let all these guys go. They need help everywhere. Such a disappointing offseason for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, look, there is no way to sugarcoat it. That is true. I think best player available would suit them quite well. Maybe selfishly for fantasy football, I am hoping that they take one of these wide receivers, Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell. I think all of those would make the offense a bit more fun. Guys, we are going to go ahead and end hour one here on the program. George and I are going to be back with you in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.